If you love liberty, declare your independence by signing the Shire Society Declaration at shiresociety.com.
The speaker is someone who is a Free State mover for 13 years. He is the co-host of Free Talk Live, and he is, I believe, the second person from the Free State Project that I spoke to before I decided to move here. The first was Ian Freeman. So this is the second person I ever talked to back in 2013 about the Free State Project. So please help me give a warm welcome to Mark Edge.
Welcome. So this is my first time ever trying slides, and I normally just wing my speeches, just get up here and talk about whatever. I thought I'd give this a little extra boost, and it turns out I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So this is going to be somewhere between a speech and a fun day watching the guy at the insane asylum. So we'll see how that goes. You can pretty much see what I've written down here. So my speech is entitled, What is Freedom and How Do You Get It? And I need to warn you, today is a day for killing sacred cows. And I'm not just going to kill them, I'm going to slaughter them. And, that's going to make some of you a little upset at some point. Now, I'm not intending to tell you your baby is ugly. I am, however, going to tell you that there's some things we can do a little better than we're currently going to do. So we're going to examine the entrails of these cows, and Socrates said that an unexamined life is not worth living, so some old dead guy said something is true, and it must be. There you go. I will be landing some punches today, but because all y'all are my friends, I'm gonna pull some of them. I've thought about this subject long and hard. Glad to see Jason Sorens, the founder of the Free State Project, here. I have come to some tentative conclusions, and I'm gonna take your continued presence here as a willingness to take some of the blows and examine some of these conclusions with me. First conclusion. Libertarians are smart. There's apparently been several studies on this. Now, this doesn't seem like much of a blow, but being smart has its disadvantages too. First off, you're less happy. And I don't know about you, I'm a little unhappy with the government processes as they are. Lots of people who aren't dealing with, aren't thinking about these things, they're happy as they could possibly be. Everything's going fine for them. So they're not thinking about that. All right, statists have it easy. The state is rarely genuinely opposes its own bad action. We can clearly see what happens when the state is caught over and over and over again abusing its power. They circle the wagons, they tell you you're wrong, there's nothing you can do, you can't fight City Hall, the whole thing. Now, I don't believe in the state. To me, it's just a group of people. Just a bunch of people doing the thing that they're doing. But the statists believe in the state. They're very confident in the state. AOC here, she believes in the state very, very thoroughly. Colbert, he believes in the state. He knows that he can just tweak it a little bit. Finally, we'll have good governance. If we could only give a little more power, more centralized into Washington, D.C., and then have the power do X, things would be so much better. Well, I know it doesn't feel like I'm landing any of those punches yet, right? I'm telling you things you know, and check, 1, 2, 1, 2. I got mine on.
I don't know.
I'm gonna yell.
I don't think he knows what he's doing, and
So,
I can't help him.
Okay.
We're smart, we're outraged, we're individualists, and we're willing to do something about it. So these are some of the things that are going on with us. It's a nice combo, right? Bigger revolutions have been built on less. I know some people don't like the term revolution. Fine, you can use evolution. I don't care. So what do? How about we move somewhere with other smart, outraged individuals and see what happens, right? It's a great idea. And it must be a great idea. We're all here. right? Like this idea was motivating and timed correctly. By the way, Jason Sorens' idea wasn't new. he happened to be at the right place at the right time. There were libertarians in a Yahoo group, and he managed to parlay that into something special. There's an interesting story of the, well, actually, my next slide will discuss it. This idea stinks. I mean, it has failed over and over and over again. Here's the Republic of Minerva. Here is the one I was going to tell you about. This is where some libertarians decide that they're going to go out into the South Pacific and pump sand up and build their own islands. The King of Tonga sent a 50 caliber gunboat out there and took care of that problem right quick. But these are just many of the projects that have been proposed and failed. I have a blog called The Move Here Project, where I chronicle these ideas and see what happens. So, the probable, almost certain future of your endeavor to get a bunch of cantankerous individualists together is probably going to be a failure. But let's talk about the elephant in the room here, right? The Free State Project. We're all here because of the Free State Project. It is by far, far the most successful project of its kind. Now, I know you said that you're ready for some punches, and here's some punches. It's a combo. The FSP is probably still not going to work as we hope it is going to. We are too few, and we don't agree on anything. If you're an outsider, you'd be convinced the FSP is a project to get libertarians together so that we can argue about things. And it's not that libertarians are one thing. We're a bunch of different things. And we have one sort of kernel of truth that we believe in, this idea of sort of decentralization and valuing the individual, but we value lots of different things. When we conflict, we are very fast to turn on each other. We seek the reins of power, and then we use them to dominate our confederates. We will literally use the state to empower ourselves against our friends. The statists have no problem growing the state. They like it, they're good at it. However, we array an army against them and begin shooting our own troops. Our plan is to retrofit the state by dominating our way through the liberty movement, and it's a tough row to hoe. I have a solution. By the way, we've done a great deal. I don't think there's anything to diminish what's happened to the Free State Project. It's difficult. This list should be so much more. I put this together. I didn't find anything more for it. But Free Staters can claim some of these victories. But then again, Colorado got marijuana freedom in the last decade, and there were no Free State Project there giving them that freedom. So, freedoms can be had without the active individualists. New Hampshire is a great place to live. I know this seems a little fractured. I'm not here to beat up New Hampshire. I just want to say there's some things we can do better. We got low crime, no personal income tax, unless it's on dividends and interest, no sales tax. We've got gay marriage, no helmet laws, no seat belts, a great place to raise kids, highest median income in the world, and I think that's incredible. Highest median income in the world, and a low unemployment. I'm not trying to tell you to leave or to move. The project was set up to be decentralized and value all opinions equally. That means that if you've got a bad idea and I have a good idea, we value them equally. Unfortunately, that's the way it goes. And I think that we need to look at some good ideas. I think we need to get on the same page as libertarians. And this is what has been being tried over and over in the Free State Project. Somebody walks in and says, I have a great idea. I'm gonna give you my great idea. Here we go. I'm first gonna predict the future, and if we don't get better organized. Libertarians will continue to move to New Hampshire. This out here is proof. People are coming, they're gonna keep coming because it's a great place to come to. We'll continue to do the things, the most effective of which seems to be getting elected. We will continue to pile up small wins. We will eventually have enough wins and momentum that will begin to finally roll back the state, what we came here for, liberty in our lifetime, right? Now this is a Herculean task. This is so unlikely. This is the winning of the lotto in libertarian projects that we've already done. And I think it's gonna happen. And as we achieve this amazing goal that has never before been achieved, we will achieve the things listed here: prosperity, longevity, innovation, higher wages, leisure, happiness. There's probably more things, but we all know that these great things are going to happen because of liberty, right? Well, when everybody else, when all these things happen, everybody's going to find out about, oh, well, things are going great over there. I want longevity and prosperity, innovation, and all that stuff. We don't have them in Vermont, Massachusetts, Maine, Connecticut, Rhode Island, upstate New York. I mean, upstate New York's a mess right now financially. People are impoverished in that place. They're going to be coming over. They're going to want to come here and enjoy what we have. And do you think they're just going to adopt our ways? Now, this is the old problem. New Hampshire's had this problem for some time, which is, you know, the massholes are moving up and that kind of thing. Well, a lot of the massholes that are moving up are already sick of Massachusetts and they want something better. And there are Republicans in Massachusetts, so they're moving up for something better. That's certainly an issue. What I'm concerned with is that once someplace does well, we can see California is a really great example. California was built by tough individualists and people, you know, rough and ready and all that stuff. And then when it became a nice place to be, then the vermin come in and they want the advantages of a good life without having to work for it. How'd they get it? Well, they get it the same way that they all get it. Hold on just a second here, I'm terribly sorry. Like I said, this doesn't work. And this is just a blank thing. They're gonna do what any normal American does. They're gonna vote for people that would destroy everything that you've worked for. The evidence is all around us. Most states were more free market before than they are now. And then the gimme crowd shows up, and they took what they thought was fair. And for you grammar Nazis out there, I know that this meme, okay, so it was a Bernie Sanders that says it's not socialism, it's democratic socialism or something. Oh, that's right, it's not theft. Taxation's not theft, it's democratic theft is what he said. And then they had the thing wrong. Voting, I have long complained about on my show, which is let's take half of the stupid people, you know, let's take everybody's opinion, half of those people are stupid. And it's, you know, a poor way to solve things. And we don't have a good solution for it here in New Hampshire. You cannot tell somebody they can't vote. Like there's just the things that the southern states are doing and trying to limit votes and stuff like that, historically it's completely unpalatable and it's not gonna work. So what can you do? You can limit the votes to the people that they vote for. I think that we should concentrate on a bill of some sort that turns into, you know, an amendment to the Constitution of the state of New Hampshire where politicians need a 75% vote to pass a bill, 75 in the House, 75 in the Senate, maybe 4 out of 5 in the Executive Council. And 50% to strike that bill. This has been talked about a great deal. Jason Sorens has admitted that probably the most difficult part of the Free State Project is keeping out the bad guys once we've had a good run of it. So in 10 or 20 or 30 years when things have become successful, then, you know, maybe this will work out, maybe it won't. I recommend this. You know, there's a very small amount of people that are working within the State House. They need your backup. And if they don't get it, then it's not going to work out. That's how I see it. Let's talk about other projects that aren't going to work or aren't working to achieve liberty. These two people, this is Chad L. Wartowski and Nadia Summergirl. She is Thai. They built a cabin on a pier. If you haven't seen this yet, it's amazing technology. They were 13 miles out in the international waters outside of Thailand. They said, hey, we want to be free. The Thailand government put a hit out on them. They are attempting to kill them over a cabin that is 13 miles, that is outside of their country. They didn't kill them because of the cabin. They killed them because they dared to say, I want to be free. This is how the state views our movement. We're all fine and dandy until we demand our freedom, and then we're up for death. It's no secret, though. It worked for Hong Kong, right? Politicians and bureaucrats, and many of them, I'm not sure which I want to hold on to here. They know the story about what happened in Hong Kong, that a free market took a place that was basically nothing and turned it into one of the most prosperous regions on the planet. What the Heritage Foundation, the Cato Institute are calling the freest place in the world. Well, you know, it's becoming less so as time goes by. You can see those marches for democracy. Obviously what's going on very recently isn't a particular problem, but they want to, the people want to have more say in their government. Once the people have more say, then the gimme crowd comes into play, and then you're in bad shape again. Special economic zones. China learned from Hong Kong that it could have these little regions where they diminish their state power and see more prosperity. There are hundreds of these worldwide. They're concentrated in Asia and Central and South America. They've existed for many decades. It's proven tech. But before we go any further, I think what's important here is not freedom of the aggregate. New Hampshire is one of the freest places in the world in the aggregate. But you can't say about New Hampshire that it's the freest place in the world to do X. If you want to smoke pot, Denver, Washington, Nevada, there's a variety of places, not New Hampshire. Nevada has a lot of freedoms, actually, social freedoms. You can do hookers, casinos, and pot all in one day, if that's what you want to do. You got to figure out what freedom means to you, and pursuing your own freedom, I believe, to be more important than anything else. And here's why. I've lived in Keene for 13 years. I believe that protesting is a self-destructive system. Protesting leads to a lack of freedom. The government comes after you again and again and again until you get so many convictions that you no longer want to deal with those convictions. And, well, then what? Then you just kind of languish and you wait for somebody else who wants to get arrested 9 times. I think that for me, it's the political process has been far more successful here, and that the protesting isn't going to work. And if you aren't pursuing your own freedom, this is what I'm trying to get across. You have to pursue your own freedom, and if you're not pursuing your own freedom, you're not living a free life. You're not showing what the value is here. You also have to determine which, so the freedoms that are important to you. If it's social freedoms, like I said, Nevada is great, but if it's economic freedoms, it gets much more difficult. The politicians, they want the gold, they want the money, and if they can get that, they can pretty much control you. So where do we build a place that is economically free? If the foundations of law, property, and contract are laid out correctly, it should last for a pretty long time, right? Hong Kong held out for several decades, and that was just, say, a first shot. The United States Constitution, pretty good document. We've seen these things, we know how it works. Surely some of you have seen Roger Vere's proposal to buy, did anybody see this video where Roger says, hey, we're gonna buy a piece of land, and we're gonna buy some sovereignty, and it'll be friggin' awesome, right? And that is a motivating speech. Remember, Roger's my good friend. I am not here to disparage Roger Ver in any way, shape, or form. That is a motivating speech and well delivered. I don't think it's going to work. Let's take a look at Liberland, for instance. This place has a very arguable claim for sovereignty. It has terra nullius, as they said, a piece of land that is not owned by any country, not claimed by any country, and so they set up their own little country in there and say, hey, we're a free place, come on in. Well, they can't even get there. I can't remember which one it is, Bosnia, that won't let them in. Some place won't let them in and to come see their own country. So they're stuck. The very biggest difficulty with the notion of setting up your own country isn't just setting up your own country. By the way, Aristotle Onassis, one of the richest guys ever, tried to buy the sovereignty of Monaco, and that failed. So remember, this isn't necessarily some kind of slam dunk. If you do get your own country, how are you going to trade? Who's going to trade with you? This is really important. yeah, sure, maybe you can find the host country that you bought it from and they'll take in the, whatever the products and services you want, put a tariff or a VIG on top. But if you're paying a tariff or a duty or whatever it is, you might as well pay taxes. At that point, your sovereign country's paying taxes to another country. You're not sovereign. As a matter of fact, sovereignty's a myth. There are 3 sovereign entities. There are 3 sovereign entities in the whole world. Russia, the United States, China. I know, you've got one that's popping up in your head. No, Switzerland isn't sovereign. Oh, that's a great idea. Hadn't even thought of that. You won't be able to trade. Simply, if you start your own country, you won't be able to trade. I know this is the great libertarian desire to do this. It certainly is for me. Hell, normally I'm wearing a crown around here. Pretty clear that we like this idea. If you really, really like this idea, I got an idea for you. Here's Pitcairn Island. 50 people live on the island. It is a British territory, which means, you know, they can basically demand their freedom at any point, as so many of them have. They're incredibly poor. They were getting like $1 million a year or something from the EU until Britain decides to Brexit, at which point they're getting nothing. And are there any Pitcairnians in the audience? No, I didn't think so, because there's none. Right? They are mostly escaping. There's more people from Pitcairn in New Zealand than there are in Pitcairn. So they're incredibly poor. The island's about 1 mile by 2 miles, so that's the 2 mile length there. There's no place for an airport. Maybe right here. Ask Varen, don't ask me. But the waves are treacherous out there. It's very difficult to get in. Basically, they have 2 boats. They have to meet a boat out in their little harbor thing, and you can't even bring a boat in. And, oh yeah, a history of pedophilia. At least that's how it's pitched. I mean, I don't know, whatever. Got me. So this place is looking for people to move there. See this little picture? It says, live the dream, make the change, move to Pitcairn Island, right? It is, you know, they've got some dial-up speeds. It's awesome. You could move there, maybe take your wife and family. Once you're set up as a Pitcairn citizen and can vote, you start buying everybody out. I'll bet you it's cheaper than buying your own sovereign nation. This place is remote, 1,400 miles from Fiji, which is also remote. But you want your own kingdom. Here you go. This is it. This is how it could be. They could use the money. Oh, they have a very large marine preserve. I think that freedom and prosperity get confused. Freedom isn't necessarily prosperity, and prosperity isn't necessarily freedom. So for instance, Singapore, prosperous, don't chew gum. You have to be close to something that's important, and that's how you get wealthy. Pitcairn does have a really cool marine preserve. It's the largest in the world, and so that's worth noting. Back to special economic zones. Here's the distribution of the special economic zones. I've come to the conclusion that this is probably the best way to find the freest location. The tech's tested. There's hundreds of these places in the world. The government knows that they work to create prosperity. As a matter of fact, the governments are setting them up all the time. You'd think they'd be against them, but they want the money. Excuse me. In this process, we cut out the problems of getting a group of passionate individualists to try to work cohesively in a group to get one thing done, which, you know, the Free State Project's the best example of this, and it's also the worst example of this. And that group of individualists has to work as a volunteer group to fight uphill against the fortified professional statists to wrest some modicum of liberty from the very organizational model it was intended to kill. Okay, so forget about social freedoms for a second. I already told you you can find those in Nevada. Let's work on an existing state that would create, with an existing state, to create a special economic zone that will benefit the local populace with jobs. You find a poor place that needs an influx of cash, one that already has a seat at this club of nations. Bring employment, stability, and maybe a few tax dollars. Yes, you're going to have to pay tax dollars. I told you, sovereignty's a myth. Get a firm agreement supported by international law that has heavy penalties for attempting to nationalize the zone when it's up and running. This is being worked on today. There's already a group of libertarian lawyers that are getting this done. So yes, that is a very important aspect. Make sure there's no duties and import fees. Have your own legal system created by libertarian scholars that takes advantage of the best parts of English common law and cuts out the bad parts. It's called ULIX. Thank you to a man named Thomas W. Bell. I'm sure he had lots of help. As I was just talking to David Friedman about it last night. He has some level of familiarity. You got to have your own Supreme Court to enforce your rules. And this Supreme Court is going to be really important. If you have one place that's in the Caribbean or Central America where the rest of these places with their crappy civil systems can come and say, hey, here's a better arbitration system, you're going to find some that are going to do that. Get rid of their civil law, it's crap anyway. Maybe you can get rid of you can't get rid of their criminal code, but you can write the rules so that you're the only one who gets to police inside this zone. Make it an already desirable place to live and visit. It's historically protected from hurricanes. Hurricanes and alligators scare Yankees. If you want investments, you've got to not have hurricanes and alligators. Buy some acreage that's unoccupied and undisputed by locals. This is one of the things that was difficult with the Free Cities project or movement or whatever it was that Patry Friedman ran into, is that they were looking for this piece of land, and it turns out somebody claims some kind of dominion over it, and so they work with the governments against that. And this is really important, make sure that any property owner in that country can join the zone, and if approved by the zone, and no matter whether they're adjacent to the zone or from around the country. When you have all these things, and we do, there's just one more piece of the puzzle that's left to put in place right now. That's the reason I can't tell you where this place is. But I can give you, I showed you a picture. It was on that map. It's here. And we thought we were going to be done by now. It was supposed to be March, but you know how governments work. They're slow to approve things. Apparently there's something going on politically. Once you've done all of that, you send out a call for investors and entrepreneurs to come and invest and create jobs. It's that easy. You don't need to beg or fight for freedom. You can lay the groundwork as an equal, and if done properly, you've got the best shot at economic freedom that we've seen yet. Once you have economic freedom, and you can show the local populace and the local government that you can create money, which is what they're looking for, then you can start talking about those social liberties that we hold so dear. Until then, you'll have to go to Vegas. Go to Sin City and hang out. This is a real Roman orgy for you perverts. They're just having cheese and wine. That's the social freedoms. That's my picture for social freedoms. Let's see. Have some cheese and wine. There's another project that's out there. This one is much more incipient than the last one. Again, it is on this map. I can't tell you where it is. Matt, I saw him. He knows where it is. And I'm sure he'll tell you, so go ask him. But this project, not as nearly well developed. The previous project has 2 years of lawyering going on. This one is some people talking at this point. But it looks very possible, and it could be significantly freer depending on how it goes. Again, secession isn't going to work. So I've recently started working with free private cities. Let's see. These free private cities would be achieved through special economic zones. No worrying about voting. They're run like resorts. You don't get to vote at Club Med as to whether or not you get cheesecake or Jell-O tonight. You don't get to tell them about what kind of pillows they're going to put in the room. You don't get to vote because you shouldn't be voting. You don't know anything about running a resort, right? The resort running's for the resort experts. And if you don't want to go, don't go to the resort. And to me, I guess this is why libertarianism is called neo-feudalism. Leave the running of cities to people who are good at running cities. Let's not vote people in with an agenda. Stop begging, arguing, fighting, and just build. That's my solution. And I'm going to take questions. I got plenty of time here for them. Line up. I'm Hit Bozo in the dunk tank.
I've thought a lot about this issue as well, and while I'm a politico, definitely involved in the political process, it seems like there's a question between short-term versus long-term goals. In the long term, politics is downstream from culture. If you can build a culture where nobody, like you look at a culture driving to Boston regularly, or microphones for that matter.
Excellent.
You look at the culture driving to Boston. Nobody driving to Boston on a regular basis at commuting hours values the speed limit. Nobody cares.
It's true.
If the police are not right there actively looking like they want to arrest you,
yeah,
nobody's going to drive the speed limit. Or the people that do annoy all the rest of us.
Yeah,
So,
right, cause a hazard.
So in the short term, our best bet for moral liberty, of whatever kind, is politics. But in the long term, your best bet for liberty is culture. If you can build a culture where nobody values some law X or law Y or the speed limit or putting people in jail for cannabis, you're going to win because no one's going to enforce it. And it seems like the Free State Project doesn't really understand this. That I talk to people and they'll be completely right about the short term and they'll pretend that there is no long-term solution. They're just not a problem. I don't know, maybe you could comment on that.
How do we, I guess I'd be asking questions. How does a small group of people change a culture? I mean, you know, I recently read an article that says 3.5% of the population you're needed to create a revolution, and no more. Which is a really small number, pretty impressive. You need 3.5%, you're in pretty good shape. I don't think we have that here today in New Hampshire, but you know, maybe we can get it at some point. Jason.
Thanks, Mark.
As I was writing this speech, I imagined this moment, please.
All right, I have a lot of things to say, but I guess I'll go through them pretty quickly. I'm way more optimistic than you are,
yeah.
I think. And part of that
Tell me about it. I want to be optimistic.
Well, actually go through the list of things we've accomplished in the last 10 years here.
Okay,
all right, we have 3 of them, but just sitting here I could think of also constitutional carry, certificate of need law repeal, medical marijuana legalization, marijuana decriminalization, town tuitioning, tax credit scholarships, nano brewery legalization, and the list goes on and on and on. I could think of
Is anyone using those tax credit scholarships yet? I mean, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Talk to Kate Baker. She's
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know nothing of it. I've got a homeschooled kid, so, you know.
Sure.
Yeah.
You can get money for that.
Now?
Yes.
That's working now?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
I probably won't, but thank you.
And I think you're a little bit maybe mistaken about the political science of migration and how that affects people's political views. So yes, as our economy develops, as we improve our economy, we have a very good economy here, people move in, and a lot of those people are going to be libertarians. Many of them may come from other northeastern states and might be kind of lefty. But the political science literature finds that actually people do adapt, not entirely, but partly to their new environment they move to. So it's not as dire as I think you're suggesting. Furthermore, a good economy also seems to change people's ideological mentalities toward favoring greater economic freedom. People become more optimistic, and as people become more optimistic about their future, they're more likely to favor free market policies. So those are some reasons to think that actually our success here...
So richer people like freer markets, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, so I just think there are some reasons to think that our success here is going to actually build on itself rather than reverse itself.
Is that success, that wealth that you're talking about, people who like free markets, is that based on geography, or is that sort of a global thing? So do Americans, who are some of the wealthiest people in the world, even our poor people, do they prefer free markets more than, say, people who are living in Cambodia?
Yes.
They do?
Yes.
Okay, I'm surprised. I mean,
Yeah.
Cambodia is much more free market. I guess they just don't have the money to steal. So, okay. Yeah, I find that interesting. Go ahead.
Well, so the final thing is, based on your list of projects that have failed, I would probably bet against any new project happening elsewhere. In fact, I'm willing to literally put money on it if you are.
What? This project?
Yeah.
What does liberty in our lifetime look like? Oh, you're talking about the project that we're working on.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
great.
yeah.
I've already put money on it.
All right, so this is June 22. Okay, so June 22, 2024. I'll offer you even odds.
Okay.
Let's say $1,000.
All right.
That fewer than 500 people will be living in any libertarian enclave, your project or any other project.
This project isn't about people living there so much. So I'm not sure. Yeah, I think it's not big enough at this point.
How can you enjoy the freedoms if you don't live?
Oh, it's not talking. I'm not. I mean, at this point, it's a real estate investment, it's not a move here project. It's something different. 500. I don't know. I mean, I couldn't say. At this point, they've got 60 acres, and you can't put 500 people on 60 acres very easily. So I'm going to have to demur with the time frame and that kind of thing.
So what would you? I'm curious. What would you bet could happen within 5 years?
And population is the key that you want to talk about. Okay. I'm going to say that it could happen in that amount of time because people would be able to add their property to this. They'd be able to join the special economic zone were they allowed to. So I'd like to push it back as far as time frame goes. When did you get 500 people here?
Let's see. It was definitely before I moved, which is 2013. We got 500 people. We were very close to it by the end of 2008. It was like 400 something, I know, offhand. So let's say end of 2009. So that would be 6 years from announcing the state vote.
Your project's about moving people. I'll do it at 10, but not at 5.
So 2029, 500 people.
And remember, those 500 people will actually have something much closer to liberty than what we have here today.
Okay.
We've got the movers, and this is what Ian will argue all the time. Hey, we're getting people moving, people are getting elected, and all these things. And this is true. I'm not going to argue that. But people getting elected isn't freedom. It's just people getting elected.
Sure.
As a matter of fact, I would argue it's less than freedom, because poor Mark Warden going up there four times a week, 3 times a week, and spending all day when he could be doing something much more fun than hanging out with the politicians. So, once these people move, they're going to enjoy many more economic freedoms. They're not going to have the social freedoms, but then again, I didn't move for social freedoms. I'm here to get my taxes lowered. Something I haven't been able to find in the freedom of the 50 states is you rank, I can find a state rank, and New Hampshire stays 1 or 2 under the new rankings. The freedom of the 50 states changed this year. Thanks, Jason.
Every year, we change it every year. But
it really changed this year. New Hampshire went from 1 to 2, and I think for good reason. I wanted to tear you up over it. I think that Florida has some really good laws that are arguable. You can't change Florida, though. With 25 million people, it's 10 times the population of New Hampshire. Why isn't there an aggregate, not just a ranking score, but just a score generally against freedom? Where is that? I can't find it anywhere. It's
yeah, you can certainly find it in the spreadsheet if you can't.
I got the book. I took out the spreadsheet.
It's in the book too. Yeah, there's a table.
Yeah, I got it right here, and I'll talk to you about it.
Okay.
The book is in that bag there.
Yeah. We've had a significant absolute increase in freedom over the last 10 years.
I carry your work with me everywhere I go.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And the other one is free private cities that's in there.
Well, I have to give you credit for putting money behind your predictions.
Yeah, well, I already bet $1,000 against the Free State Project, hitting its numbers when it did, and lost happily. Paid right up.
Right.
So, please, if I lose and get more liberty...
2029, Porcfest, 10 years from now.
Let's hope it's here. Remember, Crosby isn't going to live forever, Jason. Tone.
Hey, Mark. So you mentioned about these cities. Obviously, you're restricted by the geography, and like you said, 500 people living on this island might actually be difficult. And you also mentioned Singapore, and they're pretty authoritarian, even though
To be
they're-
clear, it's not it's on an island. It's only a portion of an island.
Okay.
It's a rather large
My
island.
general question is whether it's a small city or a big one, like you said, like no one really, like a couple of people are in charge. How do you choose who lives there? What's the control? How do you kick people out that move there that you don't like? How do you manage the first group of people to be there before they kick you out?
It's a contract. So everybody who lives and works there signs a contract to come in.
How do you enforce the contract?
You kick people out the same way that you do with your hotel. If somebody decides they're going to check into your hotel without visiting the front desk and doing things, then you get hotel security and you throw them out.
So you would, one of the first things you would need is security.
Yep, there'll definitely be security, sure.
All right.
Yeah. This is something that was revealed to me on Free Talk Live at one point, and it really stunned me, is that we say that the state is violence, and the state certainly is an institution of violence, but so is property. Property is violence because if you don't protect it, it's not yours. Anything that you've got to be willing to fight for, otherwise somebody will ultimately take it from you. So the state's an organization, hopefully, that protects property, but we've seen over and over again that it's not.
All right. Cool. Just curious.
Yeah, thank you.
I love what Jason Sorens had to say. I'm glad that I'm not the only optimist in the room. So if you want to hear, I'm not going to like rehash all the things we've talked about on the air. because-
Please do. Only half of these people are listening.
Well, I was going to invite people, if you want to hear an optimist take on this negative Nancy here, please tune into Free Talk Live. We're on 7 nights a week at freetalklive.com. But you made a comment about culture and changing the culture, and that it would be hard to change culture and this and that. And I don't think, I don't speak for anybody but myself. I don't want to change New Hampshire's culture. I think it's great. The people in New Hampshire, if you've spent any time actually meeting them and talking to them, these people love freedom. Now, obviously there's some exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, almost everybody I meet who's a New Hampshire native has an inherent love for being left alone and for being free. And I've talked to countless people. Just the other day, I had, there was a crack in my windshield. I had some windshield repairers come out from Westmoreland to do the job. I recognized a couple of them from the local bar that takes cryptocurrency in Keene, and we talked and ended up smoking a joint with them on the front porch, and they did a great job. And they were just, all three of them were just people who loved freedom. Rich Paul and I talked with them for like an hour.
You built this, Jason.
And it's beautiful. The people here are great. There's nothing to change about the culture. We're here to back these people up. We're here to bring more, liberty-loving people to this place to shore up that culture and make it better than ever. And I think it's sad that you're so jaded and disappointed and negative, given the fact that really the Free State Project hasn't even finished its move yet. You're already ready to move off to some island somewhere.
I am not moving.
I know.
I'm free in
It's
New
because
Hampshire.
I haven't said yes to moving. You want me to go with you to one of these islands, and I'm not going to do it.
I'm not going to live
And
there in the
so-
summer. It's hot.
Okay, whatever.
New Hampshire's
Whatever.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
5 months out of the year, the best place in the world to live.
Okay. Well, either way, I just think that there's really nothing to change about the culture, and I just wanted to say that.
I would say this about libertarians generally, and the claim is that the New Hampshire's libertarian. And New Hampshire is free in so much that's in the top 5, not because of a culture of liberty, but because of the original design of its political process, to make it as unwieldy as possible. Most states have 2 houses, we effectively have 3. And any law to get through has to go through all 3. The processes for getting a law passed is difficult, and that we're free basically by the dint of the founding of New Hampshire, not because of a culture of freedom. Most libertarians that I'm familiar with, and even ones that have moved for the Free State Project, are all about freedom, except that one issue. That one issue is the reason they get in the State House, and that they work hard, and then they push for the one issue that they're going to find, more tyranny in, and as a result, you don't get more freedom. It's, that's a difficult aspect.
Hi, Mark. In line with what you're talking about, you were advocating for 75% majority in the House
Indeed.
and Senate. How would you then go about getting rid of all the RSAs that are restrictive and anti-liberty?
Right, so that was 50% to strike a law. to strike through something. I think the danger with what I said, though, is that strike in New Hampshire literally is putting a line through a word, right? So you can basically write a new law by, cutting out parts of the old law, maybe even letters in the old law, and then just piecing something together into something new and more tyrannical. I don't know. That's something for a politician to figure out. Somebody who would write this. I just have one slide out of a larger presentation, trying to take a realistic view at some of the difficulties of projects like this one.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, certainly. Oh, sorry, I thought you were going to ask a question. Yeah, that look, man. Go ahead.
I can think of a question. I just walked in here. I don't even know what we're talking
Are
about.
you the Maine senator?
I am, yeah.
Wow.
Or formerly, anyway.
What is your name?
Eric Brakey, like
Eric
Achy Breaky Heart.
Brakey. Eric Brakey was you ran for the U.S. Senate, but you were in the Maine Senate.
I was in the state Senate for 2 terms, did constitutional carry, right to try, medical cannabis, and ran for U.S. Senate. And I'm not a U.S. Senator today, so you can make of that what you will.
Well, can you do some of the dancing that the Democrats were making fun of you about?
I won the dance contest in this room last night, so I had to be here for that.
I was near.
Well, you missed it.
No, Jason. Mr. Brakey basically got all this done without a project in Maine.
We would be a million times more effective if we had a free state project in Maine. I know that Maine was at one point one of the contenders, but you guys chose New Hampshire. I can understand
Was
why.
Maine one of the contenders?
Yeah.
Was it? Okay. Geographically, it's certainly a good argument for Maine. There's no doubt about that.
We'll secede together.
But just try to get the time zone changed. Go on Atlantic time. Yes, Lynn.
Just want to say Eric came out publicly in support of Ross and his petition when he was running for Senate. I mean, he was really courageous, and he is going to be running for Congress in Maine, right?
Is that U.S. Congress?
Thank you, Lynn. Yeah, I'm actually probably within the next month going to be announcing a campaign for Congress in northern Maine, which is a very winnable seat.
Yeah, cool. You're practically a celebrity here. It's, the fact that you get noticed, you get recognized outside of Maine has got to be pretty amazing.
So you should have him on your show.
And again? Yeah, you were already on, if you don't recall.
Good talking to you again.
I don't bring very many politicians on, but Eric certainly has proved his mettle. If there's no more questions, I'm going to leave you to it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Mark Edge. Appreciate that very much. Our next speakers.
We'd like to invite you to visit freekeen.com. Freekeen.com features audio, video, and blogs chronicling the transition to a voluntary society. Freekeen.com also has comments and discussion forums so you can be heard. Freekeen.com.
I should be in Keene, New Hampshire with the Free Staters.